This evening, we're very fortunate to have a representative from an organization that started just about the same time the Freethinkers did. Citizens Project got on it right away, and I have to admit I was at the very first organizational meeting at the Unitarian Church downtown. And so it was nice. We've been fellow travelers with Citizens Project for many years. And it's nice to have RoMa Johnson come and speak with us tonight. They keep really good track of the legislative issues. And I think you're going to be talking about deliberate deceptions, religious liberty, what it really means. So,
hey.
Hello. Well, I have some good news. We did talk about doing a talk on deliberate deception, the truth about religious liberty. And when we were asked to give this presentation, we were expecting a religious liberty amendment to be on the ballot this fall, if you recall. Focus on the Family had filed this deceptively titled amendment in March using, and I'll say, nice sounding, but deliberately misleading language, which spoke to people, quote, acting on sincerely held religious beliefs, but which in fact would have legalized discrimination in much the same way that Amendment 2 did. So Citizens Project went to work. We worked with a statewide coalition of organizations, including the Pride Center, the Interfaith Alliance, Planned Parenthood, ACLU, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, and One Colorado, among others, to stop this amendment. We used two strategies. We challenged the measure at the title board, which you can do, saying the language was too nebulous, and we initiated counter-ballot proposals. This 1-2 punch caused the Focus on the Family people to withdraw the amendment. Yay!
They got outed.
Saying they had, quote, more urgent matters to deal with in this election cycle. Woohoo! So there's a little printout. I don't think I have enough for everybody, but there's a printout talking about them withdrawing the amendment at this time. Now, of course, they could put that whenever they decide to do that. But that's that is our mission at Citizens Project. Our mission is to spotlight issues in the Pikes Peak region and mobilize people to strengthen the traditional values of our nation, which include civil rights, equal rights, individual freedoms, separation of church and state, civic engagement, and respect for diversity. That's what we work on, and that's what we hold dearly.
I'm sorry, I missed what the amendment was. I wasn't...
It was called the Religious Liberty Amendment.
Okay.
And it was one of those deals where if it passed and went on, it would be one of those things where a pharmacist could refuse to fill a prescription for someone if they said they didn't think they should have it based on the pharmacist's religious principles. That kind of stuff. It was very dangerous. If that ever gets very far, that's a very dangerous loss of liberty for all of us.
So a doctor could refuse to do a blood transfusion if they were a Jehovah's Witness.
Right. A pharmacist could refuse to give birth control pills. I mean, of course, there's a lot of language. I mean, a lot would happen around the issue of abortion, but that's not the only thing, by far and away.
Yeah, I believe Focus on the Family has also been fighting legislation for anti-bullying efforts because they want Christian kids to be able to bully gay kids.
Yeah, well, they didn't
And
explain
Mormons.
it quite that way.
Don't forget
That's
the
how we
Mormons.
explain it, right? What they say is something like, God gave us the right to discriminate. That's what separates us from the lower species. And so if you take away our right to discriminate, you're taking away a God-given. I mean, it's hard to follow the logic there, but that's kind of the language that they use. You know, it's like I have the right to pick a green shirt over a blue shirt. That's discrimination, so I have a right to be with certain people or not with certain people. And then you extrapolate from that, and you get into some pretty intense behaviors. So these religious freedom or religious liberty amendments, which are being introduced all over the country, are just terribly destructive on many, many levels. So, we will continue the fight on that one. We accomplish our mission by monitoring local and state government, as I said, educating citizens through our Freedom Watch newsletter, which we mail out and have online, mobilizing supporters to contact their elected officials and make their voices heard. We produce voter guides and forums for local elections and bring people together to create community. And when you talk about many, many years, this is Citizens Project's 20th year anniversary. So we're celebrating a lot this year, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. But before we continue, I was thinking of bringing a flip chart, which I didn't, but I'd be interested in hearing, you know, for myself and for Citizens Project, some of the things that you think are the religious freedom issues, both locally and, you know, nationally, that you feel that we should give the most attention to. Anybody want to come up with something?
Vouchers that end up being spent at primarily Christian schools
Right,
using taxpayer money.
yes. Anybody else?
Well, I don't think that we'll take it on, but under God phrase in the Pledge of Allegiance, which the school children are required to say, is rather unconstitutional.
Exactly, yes.
Right now, there's a legislative referral that's going to be on the ballot that would make it harder to create an amendment to the Constitution, and I would like to see the opposite, because what they're trying to do is raise the bar from 87,000 signatures collected for a petition to something that only a corporate interest could ever achieve by paying people to get the signatures for them. And that would put things in the hands of corporations and focus on the family in our state. And I don't want to see that happen. So I would like to see the opposite of the legislative referral that'll be on the ballot in November. Something that makes it easier for citizens to be able to achieve that mark without help from a corporation funding them.
That's a good point. Any others that just come to mind? This isn't a test. I'm taking the temperature of the group, you know, to see that, you know, see how we mesh in our ideas and see how we work together.
The under God phrase in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Anything else? Yeah.
know if this has something to do with it, but like I don't understand how churches, like for the state fair, charge for parking, you know, cash parking, and make a profit off something that has nothing to do with church. I mean, someone like me sometimes have actually parked at the church and given them money, and I'm just curious to where that money goes and if it's ever taxed, because it's not, you know, going to a duty.
So that's interesting.
It's
I
more
don't know,
of a
just something that
spend
kind of
money.
blows around my
Can we
head.
clarify? It's a
Can we
restriction.
clarify that? That's a really good point,
Oh, good.
because one, they can do that, but two, they have to declare it as an auxiliary enterprise. And that means an additional tax form to say that as profit, and that's taxable.
Well, you never see any information posted. I think they should be required to say, you know, we're giving this certain amount of money, so I don't feel like bad parking there. You know?
Yeah, I get it, yeah. In regards to the under God in the Pledge of Allegiance,
Yes,
that's a national issue.
not that it's mandatory done in the schools.
Well,
That's a state.
I understand that, but and I'm going to talk a lot about the schools in a minute, but one of the things that we don't do is to try to get into really huge national things. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. And so when the ACLU and major players like that take something like that on, we sign amicus briefs or whatever, but we don't try to carry the banner on something like that. We really try to concentrate on local issues in local venues where we think we can make a difference. But I'm writing all this down because I'm taking this back to the office.
And there's another one, but I lost it out of my mind a minute ago.
Well, I'll get somebody else and come back. Yes?
The big one on B is that the state passed a school funding law and the legislature screwed that around something terrible through time and defunded it practically. And sure, our money went down, that's true, but from reports that I recall, is that they took a bigger bite out of education than any place else. In better words, there was no equality there. They were laying off teachers, which is the last thing you want to do anytime. I don't care how bad it gets. When the teachers go, so goes our culture.
Yeah, well, that's what they want.
And, well, okay, we got it. That ticks me off.
I don't blame you. It ticks me off too. I think that is one of the things where you do see these gigantic religious entities who are in favor of that because they want kids to go to Christian schools or be homeschooled by Christian parents or whatever, and the rest of the kids, forget about it. It's a big problem.
I laugh every time somebody writes in and complains about the potholes in the road, and I say, that's tough. You should drive on nothing but potholes until you fix the education system.
Very good. I love that. Let's make a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I was just looking for some clarification. Are you looking for suggestions for state legislation?
No. I'm just, I'm finding out what your interest level is. What are some of the things that interest you so that when I talk about what we're doing, I can kind of get to some of these things. That's all. It was just a simple little, me getting to know you. You know each other, I don't know you.
How about in the schools trying to promote creationism masquerading as intelligent design or some other such nonsensical phrase?
Yep, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, our work with the schools. Yeah.
El Paso County, here again, I don't know what's going on in Pueblo, but El Paso County, I think we have a disproportionate number of polling locations that are in churches.
I'm going to talk about that
And
too.
I'd like to see what happened. We used to have a lot, they cut back a whole lot of polling places, and I haven't seen the new list.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in just a
But
minute.
I have the attorneys ready to get on it, so
Oh, yay. Okay, so, thank you. And if you think of other things,
I have one more I can add in. It is
All right, let's
local.
have it. Let's have it.
In where I live in Monument, they just started this requirement where you have to turn in with your ballot a photographic proof of ID, such as a state-issued driver's license. That never used to be the case. They've now imposed that, which strikes me as a way to solve a problem that doesn't exist, voter fraud, in the name of, or actually is it with the hidden agenda of disenfranchising people.
Right. And we are doing some work in that area. In fact, we just sent out a citizens alert today telling people how they can check to make sure they haven't been eliminated from the mail-in ballot. If you skip an election, they can take your name off. Or if you move, they take your name off. But they don't send you anything to say, hey, by the way, you're not registered anymore. They just don't send you a ballot. And so this
In
is...
Pueblo, you have the right, they have a website. You can go on it anytime and check your status.
Yes.
It's there.
it's a state site, Jim, anybody in the
Okay.
state.
Yes, so what we did today was to try to send out that information to
The
people.
web
Are you gonna share that
is
with
the
us?
latest way of doing things. And it's there. People should use it. The worst problem we have is the number of people that don't vote. How do you get them in there?
Right. You can look on the citizensproject.org website, and the information will be there. I didn't bring the flyer with that information specifically on it, but it just went out today as an action alert. Okay, and any of you who want to receive our action alerts just have to sign up on the website saying, or call us or email us at info@citizensproject.org and say, please start sending me action alerts and Freedom Watch. And it's free. And feel free. Okay, so let me tell you a few of the things we've been doing recently. And I mean a few because we do a lot of things, and sometimes when we sit down and try to list them, it's hard to remember everything. But at Citizens Project, we believe that the United States was founded on the principle of religious freedom. And the truth about religious liberty is that it's for everybody. Religious liberty means freedom to practice or not practice religion. It means freedom to have open, thoughtful discourse and freedom to live in a community where this discourse is not subject to automatic override by the predominant, pervasive, evangelical voice. So we challenge institutions and people who want to sanction state religion, and we oppose legislation that advances religious morality. Now, Citizens Project works locally, as I said before, here in the Pikes Peak region to promote religious freedom and the separation of church and state in several ways. First of all, we work with the schools. We do a lot of work with the schools. Every year, once a year, we conduct what we call the Citizens Religious Freedom Institute. And we send out flyers and information to every school, every principal, every superintendent to inform educators, teachers, principals, and school board members on how to protect religious freedom in the schools. This year, the Institute was attended by 50 people, and over half of them received graduate credit. This is an all-day seminar. It starts off with a whole morning of examples of case law taught by an attorney who has, this is his main work. And then in the afternoon, we have breakout sessions around certain issues. This year, the hot topics included I don't know if you've heard about prayer around the flagpole days,
Yeah.
where all the students are supposed to gather at the school flagpole and pray together. Is that legal? Yes, it is legal, because it's students. If a teacher were running it or the school were running it, it would be illegal. So we talked about what does that mean? What is student-led and what is school-sanctioned? There were a lot of discussion there. We talked about prayer in the locker room, where the coach makes the kids say a prayer, Tebowing, for instance. Now, Tebow has every right to pray. He has every right to pray in the locker room. He has every right to pray on the field. The coach cannot make people Tebow. He cannot discriminate against players who want to play who don't want to pray. So it shouldn't be a pray-to-play kind of a deal. And believe it or not, there are a couple of coaches here in Colorado Springs who have been flagrant violators of this.
Fisher DeBerry?
Hmm?
Fisher DeBerry?
I don't know. I don't know the name.
It was the Air Force
Oh, Air
Academy
Force
football
Academy, yeah.
coach.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fairly new to town. I don't know if you know that. But in the grade school and the high school, in particular, I was thinking about one particular coach would only let kids, Christian kids on the team in the first place, and then if a kid refused to pray before the game, they were not allowed to play, that kind of thing. That was against the law. We had a lot of discussion about creationism and intelligent design. And teachers, science teachers especially, told us that they were intimidated and threatened by kids. One teacher told a story that just made my blood run cold, where he was talking to the kids and he was presenting something as a for instance. I can't remember exactly what the for instance was. And the kid unbeknownst to him, was videotaping him using a cell phone, then edited the tape to make it sound like the teacher was saying something else, then confronted the teacher and the principal saying the teacher should be fired, using this tape as, quote, evidence. I mean, it was terrifying. And so you have science teachers saying, okay, when we get to this part, I'm not teaching that. Somebody else will have to come in and teach it because I'm scared, I'm being bullied, and I don't want to teach. Either that or I quit my job. And that's pretty horrible. But serious bullying of teachers by kids and families when they try to comply with the law. Which is that is not to be taught as the main thing. That we're talking about evolution is a part of the scientific curriculum, period. And the Earth is older than 4,000 years. That's pretty much proven in many circles, not all. That sort of thing.
Does Citizen Project have a roster of substitute teachers that could do a good job with that?
No, that would be beyond our scope, actually. What we do is we work with the superintendents, with the principals.
Yeah, but if they have a teacher who can't teach what we're talking about, who do they turn to?
Well, they have to go to their principal, basically. So we work with the principals talking about supporting that teacher, reducing bullying, working with that teacher to say to the parents, sorry, this is the law, we are complying with the law. If you don't want to have your child exposed to this, you know, the alternative is private school, essentially.
Well, what the teacher can do if the teacher's afraid of being recorded and edited is a teacher can record the lecture him or herself.
That's right. That's right.
Not really, not just to record just one lecture.
Well, I think in this particular case, this one teacher that brought this up didn't think he was teaching something controversial. He was using a for instance, you know, for instance this, for instance that, and then the for instance that was taken out of context, filmed and edited.
And aren't phones and all those things not allowed, supposed to be turned off in the classroom anyway?
Absolutely. So
Well,
there were lots of violations.
But this man makes a good point, is that if a teacher is fearful of being bullied or extortion, I think they should request that they have a videotaping of their class session. End of argument.
End of argument if the principal goes along with this. End of argument if the principal feels supported. End of argument if you can present case law to support this. I mean, it's not a simple matter because the principals also feel bullied. I use the word bullied. I don't know that they use it that way.
Doesn't it need to be video recorded? If it's audio recorded, and everyone has their own audio recorder, you know, you can easily show that something was edited on a video because the audio would have been changed. So an audio recording can prove that something else isn't accurate.
Well, that's true. In this particular case, and this was just one teacher, but it did spark a lot of discussion as it has here. He didn't realize that what he was saying would cause that.
Oh, no, I did think of one other issue. In District 11, some of the schools seem to be clueless as to what the Jewish holidays are, such as, well, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, which are in the fall, and they set picture day on one of those days. One year, the school count day, the state count day, was on one of the holidays. They may do other special things like a project is due or other things on those days. And the schools really should be notified, you know, what the holidays are, even though they can figure them out quite easily, and avoid scheduling things on those days, or at least so I think.
I can say one of the things we do along these lines, and not specific to that one issue, is that we do send out a printout to all schools every fall called the December Dilemma. And the December Dilemma is what can you celebrate in terms of holidays? What is allowed, what isn't allowed? How can you negotiate the holiday celebrations fairly and squarely, that sort of thing.
How is catering in your curriculum to a religion a separation between church and state? Just out of curiosity.
Well,
I don't agree with you.
It would be
Anyway.
avoiding, well, the child will not be in school on that day. So all my ex and I had asked is that they don't schedule something the kid kind of has to be in school for on that day. Because kids aren't in school on Easter, and they're not in school on Christmas Day, and they're not in school on the major Christian religions.
Then that should change.
I don't know that, I don't think it's fair to ask.
So where do you draw the line then? I mean,
I don't think it's fair to ask that they don't have school on Jewish holidays.
Right.
They don't in New York City, but, here there are so few Jews, I think that would be unfair to ask.
That's part of the point is, it doesn't matter how many there are. If you're being tolerant of everybody, then if there's one, that's enough, that you need to cater to that. If you're gonna cater to some, you have to cater to all, or you cater to none. And I think the separation of church and state is the argument that you cater to none. You dictate none of your scheduling based around any particular religious holidays or events.
Well, if we did that, then we'd have to have class on Christmas Day,
Yes.
assuming it's during the week.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That would be a true separation
Absolutely.
between church and state.
I think that probably,
The
that
teachers might not
goes
like
beyond the
that.
scope of what anyone would take on. But having just lived in New York City for the last 5 or 6 years, and just coming here from New York City, I know that that's true in New York. That people are very cognizant of Jewish holidays and really respectful of that, and wouldn't expect a kid to turn in a paper on them, for instance. But here, I think that doesn't happen. Yep.
As a teacher, I would expect papers from all of my kids regardless. I mean, because like the gentleman over there said, if you're going to cater to one, you cater to all. And I certainly don't see any catering going on from Muslim religions or any sort of non-mainstream evangelicals. So I think the better option would be to cater to none rather than making exception after exception after exception. Because it's really difficult as a teacher to expect,
Yeah.
okay, half of my class has a paper due on this day, and the other half of my
Well,
class has a paper due on this day, because I don't want to
Since we already
offend
cater
it.
to Christians,
Which should
what
stop.
other,
which is a bad thing.
It's a bad thing.
what other holidays are there in the Muslim holiday? What other 2 or 3
Well, I mean,
major
my
holidays
point
are
is
there?
it shouldn't
I mean, there
matter.
aren't a lot that has to be scheduled around.
I mean,
But my point is there should be none. There should be none. There should be none.
Should be
Okay,
none.
well,
I think
if
I
you-
think that argument is moving in the wrong direction.
in a perfect world, there shouldn't be none. But in this world, there are certain things we have to accept, and we'll never be in
So-
a perfect world where we get rid of, quote, winter break, and we're going to school on Christmas. It will not happen, even though it shouldn't be the case.
So at what
So
point
if
does
we
the,
cater to Christians, maybe we can cater to 1 or 2 other major religions.
What about
just 1 or 2?
That's not
What
even-
Halloween?
So should it be 1 or 2?
So you just want to discriminate
Or
against
3?
I want Halloween.
So, what about solstices? You have
So,
any
I bet
other.
there's no more than 5 other days in a year at most. And all I'm saying is, not have to make it easy for the students to be
solstice, you know.
Not have something to do on that day.
So Roma, are these the kind of discussions you have on that day?
We have these kinds of discussions around the December dilemma. Like, is it okay to have a Christmas pageant at school? The answer is no, it is not okay to have a Christmas pageant at school. Is it okay to have, to talk about the history and traditions of Christmas at school? Yes. But you cannot tell kids that this is the way, or that the Savior was born this day, or this kind of thing. And you have to say the same thing. There are other celebrations that happen at this time of year. Does anybody know what they are? Let's talk about Kwanzaa. Let's talk about the Jewish holidays. Let's talk about Hanukkah. Let's talk about Ramadan. So making that a part of more of a social curriculum is okay. And you're right, you have to include everybody or nobody. You can't single out 1 or 2 religions or 1 or 2 bigger groups and say, we'll celebrate this, but not that. So it's a sticky wicket, and teachers have to negotiate this every single year. And depending on the school they're in and the principal they have and the knowledge, they're more or less successful. This is why we send this little pamphlet out that says, this is how the law reads. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do in a public school that's tax supported. Question back here? Yeah.
I've seen a similar problem where I was driving along the street and I saw a church sign where the church was meeting in a high school and on the north side of Colorado Springs. And I was wondering how that could work. So I looked into it and found out that they're a charter school. Most of their students are using vouchers, though, to be there. And the voucher problem here has gotten so large that an entire charter large high school can be sustained just by the voucher students. This school has in its auditorium a church every Sunday, but they don't make themselves available on Saturday for other religions. You know, it's just churches that they allow there, but they can get away with it even though they're taking.
It seems to me that could be argued in court. The voucher system alone can be argued, and I think charter systems, charter schools are being argued, and that's going to go on for years. So I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did. I can tell you some of the things that we do, but some of the things that are bigger than what we can do, I don't have answers for.
You don't need a voucher to go to a charter school.
No, you
Because
don't.
charter schools are state-supported, state-sanctioned schools that are supposed to be free of religious dogma and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of issues going on with that.
Yes,
there.
in particular, if you drive near Vista Ridge High School, you'll see the signs pointing to their church service right outside of that neighborhood. You know, and how can a school that takes a whole bunch of public funds only allow itself to be used as a church on Sunday?
I'm not an attorney, so I don't know.
Is the church renting the space and paying a
That
fair
does
market
happen.
price to the school district?
I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer to that.
I know
Let's
churches
listen
do
to
rent
the other thing. Oh, yes,
spaces.
sorry.
Well, I just wanted one other follow-up. I mean, as far as making accommodations for religious holidays, I would pose the question, why isn't the student taking some responsibility for the fact that this is their religious belief and they want that day off, and so they need to make arrangements to turn in their assignment a day ahead of time, or to take that responsibility for themselves rather than asking the school to make an exception for them.
Assertiveness is
I've
taught
had
and
several
learned.
students
It's
in
not
African tribes do the same thing, come to me and say, look,
I'm not
this is
gonna
my
be here
tribe's
this day.
day, I won't be here, can I get my work? And it works fine.
Yeah.
How far, I know this is a progressive idea that we don't discriminate against anyone by just saying, okay, no Christian holidays either, right? How far are we from that actually being a reality? It's
Never happened.
really super progressive, or could it be?
Yeah, you're never going to lose Christmas break.
Well, it could be
Kids
called
are-
winter break. Could it be called?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but
winter
it
break.
still covers the
It
Christmas.
is called winter.
But
It's
even
not
people
called
who are
Christmas
not
break.
Christians celebrate Christmas.
But
I
it's
mean, I'm
still-
not Christian and I still
it's
put up a
over
Christmas
that
tree, so
section of the
me
New
too.
Year's and
it's purely secular for me.
Okay, moving right along here.
Moving
Right along here to what we do, because there's some things that we just don't do, and we don't get into. We do file briefs in support of not having the voucher system, the vouchers go to religious schools. We do that. And that's an argument that's taken on by bigger fish than we are. I mean, so, but we do file in support of that.
We
Okay.
have another one. Prayer instead of in the beginning of city council meetings.
That's just ceremonial.
Well, I don't know if any of you have ever visited the United States Senate in Washington DC.
Do they do it
open
now?
with a Christian prayer.
Doesn't mean it's legal.
But
The
there
Supreme
was.
Court has held that it's, as that gentleman pointed out, the
Sir,
court has held
My
ceremonial.
husband just
Which
came home
means-
from Afghanistan on
which means
Saturday,
it's
and we
been
all
there
got
for
to stand there and
200
listen to
years,
them
so they
pray
won't
for
change it.
everybody.
Maybe.
I was really happy.
Okay, moving along here. One of the other things, yes.
In the Continental Congress, there was never a prayer said. Why do we have one now?
Good point.
Yeah,
I
on
guess
that
fundamental
same
religious
point, Mitch
culture.
Kale
Chicken?
successfully, actually was arrested for it, but he He did a brief moment of 7 seconds of civil disobedience, and I think it was the lower assembly in Hawaii. And a judge, he sued after, because they basically manhandled him, the security took him out and roughed him up, and his cameraman, he sued, and the judge found in his favor that he had a right to protest, and I believe she also said, the judge, that it was not appropriate for them to be doing prayer. So I think it actually got dropped. Now, whether it was formally illegal as far as can't do it at all, or just the public pressure and the negative press led them to stop doing it, I don't know, but they did stop in that assembly.
That's amazing. Okay, one of the other things we do is we send out a graduation mailer for the same reason that some of you brought up, that schools are having their graduation ceremonies in churches. And we think that that should stop. And so we send out a graduation mailer saying, please, please, please do not hold your graduation ceremonies in churches. And then there are schools that don't honor that, and then we go back and talk to them, and we try to have individual conversations with the schools themselves. We wait until the fall. We don't go and disrupt the graduation or any of that stuff, but the school year's over, they've had the graduation, it's in a church, we go in the fall and say, look, that's not good. Next year, let's find another place. If you need help finding another place, we will help you find another place to have a graduation that is not in a church.
Is that baccalaureate programs or is it graduation?
It's graduation from high school, basically.
It's just okay.
What's
That's different.
what's the issue? Forgive me.
Well, again, it's the separation of church and state. Should a state-sponsored school be having a ceremony to issue diplomas in a church? I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so don't expect me to have case law, but that's the issue essentially.
So
Yes.
why are we having voting locations in churches then?
Okay, I'm getting to
That's
that.
really,
Yeah, I'm
I
going to get
can't
to
wrap my
that.
head around it.
I'll get to that in just a second. Let me finish up with work in the schools, and then I'll talk about voting. Okay, so one of the other things we do is we do provide incident response. We do get calls from parents, students, teachers, saying, this is happening, what do we do about it? Is this legal? Can they do this? Can they make me stop doing this? Can they make me start doing that? Where do we stand? And so we go in and work with the principals, the teachers, the parents, or whomever. Sometimes people call us because they don't personally want to go forward. They don't want to be known, and they don't want to be sort of marked. So they come to us and they say, did you know that there's a coach at my son or daughter's school that's making the kids pray? Can you do something about it? And in which case we would go and talk to the principal and take citations of case law and say, look, this can be done and this can't be done. So we try to support people in that way. And recently we even provided a legal brief for a principal of a local school for use when confronting a problem teacher about overt prayer with a student on school grounds. And the principal wanted to know, what can I say? What can't I say? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? I feel like this is a landmine. What should I do? And we said, look, here's what you can say. Here's what is legal. Here's what's not legal. Yes.
What about the issue of the Gideons handing out Bibles in public schools? Is that fair game for your organization?
No Bibles in public schools?
No, the Gideons handing out free
Oh,
Bibles in public schools, or they're adjacent to cafeteria or other places on the school and hand out Christian
We
Bibles.
talked about that. I'm trying to remember what they said about that. I think they said that the Bibles could be, you'll have to look this up for sure.
They said that they can be there, the child can take one if they like.
They can take one if they like, but they can't say this
They
will
can't
make
say,
you
"Here, take
better,"
this."
or this will change your life.
And now there was just a case in, I think, Massachusetts where a mom was suing her daughter's school district because she wanted to be able to hand out some kind of pagan literature. And I think it was a Wiccan book, and she won, although it's a loss for her and her daughter too, because now they're outcast and, you know, they get a lot of problems in their school district. So they win in court, but then their lives suffer, you know, because of it, you know. But I mean, they did what they felt was right, but, you know, so that school district has to allow people to hand out Wiccan stuff as well as Bibles.
Right.
Why would schools allow anyone to hand out anything?
Yeah, they do. Newsletters come home this time of year and they have all kinds of summer camps and karate classes and church camps and everything.
Right.
Yeah. They can make stuff available to the students, but they can't sell
Force it on them.
religion or sell the fact that if you take this, God will love you and that sort of thing. Yes.
Does Citizens Project do any kind of report card for schools as far as how they're doing, or problem schools or problem districts, or where they're struggling to, you know, where you're running into more trouble?
No, we don't. I mean, internally, we sort of know, oh my God, it's them again, you know.
Right, but I mean, for, you know,
But no,
somebody who just moves to town and is trying to decide where to live, I mean, having a resource where somebody can go to and say, oh, wow, this seems like a school district that maybe is better or you know, fits more with what I want versus this one. I mean, it would be a nice tool.
Well, I think in some ways, I think that's a good idea, and in some ways, I think that closes the door for us to be able to dialogue with some of these problem schools, and, you know, gets the door slammed in our face, where we can't go in and say, look.
But I think the idea he's bringing up, though, is kind of like a Better Business Bureau sort of idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the ACLU
trying to spotlight on
has a report card on political candidates and things. So if you have that information being public, it's kind of a Better Business Bureau report card. I mean, they have an A through F ratings on businesses too.
Well, if you could say, and make up now, if you're willing to share, what districts are better or worse than others?
Oh, I wouldn't, I couldn't.
I mean, I think about, what's the school up on the north end of town? What's the school up on the north end of town by the big charter school?
I mean, I'm fairly new here, so.
Classical Academy?
Classical Academy. It seems like they're always in trouble. I mean, it seems like there's always something going on up there that is, I mean, maybe it's just my perception, I don't know, but maybe it's not. But, I mean, that's one that.
That's a charter school that's violating the charter school legislation.
Okay. You know, so I mean, that's kind of one of those things where it'd be like, oh, you know, maybe here's somebody that makes the list.
Angie's list.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last thing we do with the schools is we work hard, knowing that bigotry stems from religious ideology. We work very hard with Inside Out and other organizations to make sure that LGBT kids are safe at school, including providing information about the compliance with the anti-bullying statutes, etc. So this last year, we sent out information on the December dilemma at the same time that we sent out information on the anti-bullying laws and how they can be and should be enforced within the school, and some ways to write policies, etc. So we work hard on that. So that's, yes.
One of the things, I'd like to do both sides of this coin. One of the things, what would you like for us to do? And what would I like to see one more thing that you all do, because you do a lot. You have a very real presence in this community, and I thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, one of the things I think that would be helpful is if we all would be letter writers regularly to weekly newspapers. Now, the Gazette is just about a total loss.
Oh, yeah.
Just about.
Just about. I mean, it still is on paper and there's print there, but that's about as far as it goes. But weeklies are always looking for letters. They're always looking for content. And it would be helpful if you'd give us some lead lines and focus on what we're doing. I mean, what would be a lead line with a sentence or two for a letter that really ought to be written, and then all of us pick it up and round it out any way we want. Like, for instance, on the whole issue of women's rights, we really ought to appeal to women, laity and clerical. our friends in the Catholic Church are the nuns. I mean, they're way, way, way ahead of the hierarchy, way ahead of them. And another thing would be to raise the question about whose responsibility is it for the moral tone of the people? It's ours. We're the responsible. We've known that for about 4 centuries. So, I mean, it isn't, the clergy have been behind on all kinds of things on moral leadership. I mean, the earth is, just start with the fact that the earth isn't flat, et cetera, et cetera.
And why didn't some of them fall off the edge?
Yeah.
Well, some have. Some have.
They are off the edge.
Or to raise the question, what is it that the religious hierarchy doesn't understand about our Constitution and Bill of Rights? Begin to call their authority to account on the merits. That we ought to do that.
Well, you bring up a
Now,
really good point.
and then if we really get energetic, at the last election, I sent out with no return address and an American stamp on the envelope, a letter to the pastor or the senior leader of the church. I sent out about 100 of them, telling them that there would be visitors in their churches in the next 6 to 8 weeks before the election to listen and see if their leadership in any way, oh, it's wonderful, is any way violating the rules of the IRS, and here's what those rules are. And so please welcome those. Pardon?
You know, I think just an answer.
No, I didn't know.
Did they answer you? Did they?
Oh, there was no return address.
I'll tell you, in response, and I'll get to you, just hang on. In response to your question about what you can do, letter writing, obviously, we urge people to speak out. We urge people to have a voice. Writing to the local newspapers is one thing. Write to Citizens Project. We put out, we have a web presence that we refresh through blogs, action alerts, and the Freedom Watch, and through social media, daily, weekly, and monthly, and we're always looking for content. We write a lot of it ourselves, but we would love to have somebody write us a letter saying what you just said.
Well, but you have all the information. I don't, and many of us don't. Give us some lead lines is all I'm asking.
I understand.
And then we all want to have some fun.
Subscribe to their monthly mailings, and each one of them is a massive lead lines for you.
Yeah.
Every time you get one of their mailings, boom, boom, boom.
Another thing is, if any one of us has some fun, before the election, start visiting some of those churches.
Exactly.
Oh man, is that hard.
You can't go to the LDS
But
church.
and then take notes like crazy. And if anybody asks what you're doing, tell them that you're listening to see whether or not they're honoring the requirements of the IRS. Tell them up front. Fear works 2 ways.
Exactly, but if you
It
were
works
to
2
say,
ways, and put it on them. And it's a kick. It's really a kick.
Do you actually go?
Yes, absolutely I do. I take notes like crazy.
okay, now one question over here, and then I'll get to you.
Well, mine's more of a rhetorical comment. And that is, you have every right to call your school board members and compliment them on something if you think you like what they're doing, or complain about something. Same thing with city council. Same thing with county commissioners. Any elected official, you have a right to contact them and either give them a bouquet or a brick. And the more these elected officials hear these comments, the more they begin to see that they are either being opposed or being supported by something they're doing.
Yes,
You have to
does that all the time.
But the fun,
you have to search your own conscience. Don't just complain about it, do something.
But the extreme right, for example, I've been writing letters since last fall to many politicians all across the country. I have them all in my laptop, so if I need those, that wording from a previous letter, something like that, I've written so many letters to Doug Lamborn, who I know personally because I sit on Planning Commission and I'm very connected to our city council in Fountain, and I know Doug Lamborn personally. I've written letters to him, several letters. I don't think he knows my name in his office, or maybe his staff flunkies don't know my name. So I wrote a letter to him about the Colorado Blunt Amendment thing last month. And my response last week was this form letter that essentially, I don't care what you think, I'm supporting this religious right, thing. And so I sent him a really nasty email back. I'm an ordained minister. I sent him an email back and that said, thank you for proving to me that you are not willing to represent all of your constituents. You're only willing to represent the constituents you deem worthy.
Well, all politics is local.
Sure. But this is just here. I've written to politicians. Same thing happened when I wrote a letter to a couple of the politicians in Arizona, including McCain, and those amendments they're doing in Arizona. And it's horrendous. They believe that what they're doing is the truth. And so how do you break through that even with your letters?
Volume.
Volume.
Yes, volume.
Shut the switchboard
Good
down.
for you.
You know, you create a message tree
I'm running
and
out of
shut their
stamps.
switchboards down, shut their email down.
I don't think John McCain or anybody outside of your legislative district really gives a hoot.
Sure.
If you can't vote for or against them, you're nothing.
But I know people in those states.
I don't agree with that.
Then have them do the writing.
It would be useful if you would send her a copy of what you wrote for you, and you use whatever you want to in your newsletter. But I mean, so that's content two ways.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, next question.
For about 20 years, the Freethinkers of Colorado Springs, this group here, has been buying a section of the editorial page in
Oh, I
the
wanted to
Colorado
talk to you
Springs
about that.
Independent.
Yes.
And it's varied from one in every issue to one in every 3 or 4 issues now, depending on how our money ebbs and flows. But in the early years, we quite often tailored the content of that towards some local issue, and then found that Citizens Project came along the next week or month and picked up that same issue. And a lot of times it felt like we could go out front and be belligerent, and then Citizens Project would come in and be the conciliatory party, and people would sit down and talk with Citizens Project and agree to do what those obnoxious people in their editorial that we really ought to do anyway. One of the things people in this room could do if they wanted to is they could write an 800-word piece for that.
550?
550 in the Independent, which we're always looking for. Would it be possible to collaborate with Citizens Project with editorials like that? Or do you have a major event coming up that we might run an editorial pitching things that you're striving to do?
We do, actually, and I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to tell you something else just as an aside before I get into the polling places in the churches part of this. When I first came to Citizens Project, and Fred and I have talked about this twice and 3 times or 4 times, but I found that in the offices there were boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff around Proposition 2 or around gay pride or around this issue or that issue. And things pertaining to that issue were in a box, but that was about it. And so I had just been working in New York City for a long time, and the organization I worked for, which was the Gay and Lesbian Center in Greenwich Village, had a huge archive. And we had actually a professional archivist, and our archive was accessed by people all over the world, literally, who wanted to study LGBT history, blah, blah. So I found this box, and I said, we should send this over to the Pride Center so they can archive it. And it was like, well, they don't do that. What? So, long story short, I went to the Pikes Peak Library District, and I said, we have 20 years of stuff here, archiving Citizens Project's various struggles and issues, hate mail, publications, blah, 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 20 years of this. And they said, we'd love to have it, and they archived it, and it's now available both in the Pikes Peak archives, but in the Rocky Mountain Interlibrary archives, and it's all cataloged, it's all dated, somebody could ask for something by topic, etc. And so I've been talking to Fred about gathering up all of those 20 years of articles, and I've talked to the library and said, would you be interested in archiving this? And he said, absolutely. So It's a little bit of a hassle to try to gather it all together. Maybe you won't miss a few. But
We have 200 articles.
200, well, we had 17 boxes. So that's not a big thing for them because they have professional archivists and interns who would do that for you. And then that would be an amazing gift to the city. So think about it. It's a matter of gathering and gathering them up. Okay, so can I move on? Yes? All right. Polling places. In 2010 elections, 72% of the polling places in the Pikes Peak region were in churches. We feel that this is wrong. We have cited literature that says that having polling in a church absolutely influences the way people vote, especially on certain issues, like these religious freedom issues or abortion issues or women's rights issues, that sort of thing. The next closest county here in Colorado had 38% polling places in churches. We had 72%. So we have been working all year, really, to compile, by talking to people all over town, we've compiled a list of more than 30 alternative venues who are big enough, have capacity, have parking, could be open, yada, 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 who have said they would be polling places that are either secular places or alternative faith places where there's no doctrinal stuff going on. And we've submitted this to the county clerk's office so they can no longer say, well, we had to use the churches because there wasn't any other place we could possibly use.
Have you followed it up on whether they're going to do that?
Well, we've sent it to them, and we are in conversation with them.
With Wayne, you got to follow it up or he won't do anything.
Oh, well, Christy Milligan talks to Wayne constantly.
But do they have the list yet?
Oh, yeah, they have the list.
For 2012?
They have the list.
Of the polling places or your alternative places?
Alternative places.
No, I want to know where the polling places are.
I don't know the answer to that. Well,
2010 was all mail-in. There were no polling places.
Right.
Well,
That's not true, they have it in.
No, the city
like
municipal was
the Cascade Clerk's Office and some other places.
Yeah, but I don't think they did any real thing. I mean,
well, we're hoping that we can continue to put pressure on this issue and put pressure on this issue. So there is a constant dialogue. We haven't won yet. We haven't seen the announced polling places yet.
could I ask that you send us a list when you get it so that we can see the trend? Because I have an entire legal center.
Can we contact, the clerk's office and just ask, do you have your polling places selected yet?
Yeah, but what I need to do is be able to compare the 2 years and see what the trend is.
When you're talking to Wayne, tie it to meeting rooms in restaurants and make it an economic issue. You could hear that. He didn't hear well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
78% or 72%, you said, do you know how many actual places that is?
No.
Oh, the other 28%, besides schools or government buildings, what other type of facility is used?
Community rooms in the park.
Community rooms, event centers.
Are they paid by the state or the county? Are the churches paid or do they volunteer the space?
I believe they volunteer, but that's a question I cannot answer honestly.
Okay.
I was a poll watcher at a church, and there were signs of an appropriate distance. I noticed that when I put some of those down, I noticed when I left, they weren't there anymore. So the point is that the churches themselves and their members discriminate against signs they don't want. I mean, tell him that. That's a fact. That's my experience.
Okay.
So is there really that much research that someone will walk into a church instead of a school and they'll say,
yeah.
oh gee, all of a sudden I'm anti-choice
Yes.
and vote differently?
Yes.
No, they don't change their mind and vote differently, but they're wrestling with the dilemma themselves as they approach the polling place. And there's the smiling Jesus right above the polling booth. And their resolution melts.
Jesus doesn't smile.
That's what I've seen happen.
I think the stats do show people who vote in churches, 28, 38, some percentage of the time, change their vote and become more conservative.
Yeah, there has been some serious research done on that issue. Okay.
Well, the Holy Spirit is there, so
Might change your vote.
influential.
Okay, so we also work to provide voter education and galvanize voters, as you know, I'm sure, that we provide nonpartisan voter education programs for every local election, including a comprehensive Freedom Watch voter guide, which you see in the Independent newspaper, and election forums that are free and open to the public. We do that for every election. We'll do it for the memorial election, which will come up before the main election. Our voter guide reaches more than 100,000 residents in Pikes Peak region through insertion in the Independent. And we mail to our supporters, and we email and do a lot of social networking. And a lot of promotion through social networks. Our municipal forums are held at a local theater, and we usually have around 250 people there. We'd love to see 1,000 people there. We have room for 1,000 people there. If you're asking what you can do when you hear about these forums, get people to go. Because the more people go, the more people who are running for office will think about what they should be saying and how they can relate. Nearly all the candidates for local office, however, do participate. So it's amazing. Because they feel we're a trusted community resource for election education and nonpartisan information. We develop comprehensive candidate surveys for every election. We send them out to the candidates. We ask them to fill out the surveys with every candidate answering the same set of questions. We publish the results. Again, that goes out in the Indy to more than 100,000 people. And when we have candidate forums, we usually have a media panel, people from the media asking questions, question and answer periods, and opportunities to meet the candidates. Because voter education is very, very key to civic engagement and being informed. And we're very conscientious, although we're considered to be progressive because of our stance on some of these issues. We think of ourselves as nonpartisan in trying to put out the information for people to make up their own minds. So our struggle is always to let people know that this is nonpartisan information. This is a survey we sent to everybody. Everybody has a chance to answer it. The voter candidates are all asked the same questions. The forums are open to everyone, etc. We're not promoting a progressive agenda. We're promoting get out the vote, basically. Okay. So I don't know how many of you have seen our billboards around town, the big billboards with the double circles, the Venn diagram.
A little vague, but to the point.
Well, the point is that we're trying to say that there are these concepts: freedom from something, freedom of something, and the common ground is Citizens Project, and we try to hold the common ground and represent the common ground. So the two that are up now, one part of the diagram says freedom of and one says freedom from. They intersect. And in fact, there's one in the Indy this week, which I can pass around if you want to see it. Common ground for the common good. I'm going to pass that around to look at. This is part of one of our annual awareness campaign issues this year, is trying to talk about our 20th anniversary and how we really do try to hold the common ground so that all sides have a voice, everyone is heard, and we work for a better community. So, as I mentioned, Citizens Project celebrates 20 years this year. amazing. We have had 20 years of rigorous work. We're a small shop, 2 part-time staff and all the rest volunteers. We intend to keep on working. For instance, we expect another personhood measure on the ballot again this fall. We will rigorously oppose that. We expect to exert continuous pressure. We expect to get continuous pressure from those who would tear down the walls separating church and state and institute ideologically based values on us, on our families, on our children. So, common ground for the common cause, which I'm sending around, is the theme this year. You asked if we have any events coming up, so I'm going to pitch just for a second. We do have our annual Creating Community Breakfast coming up on June 7th, where we gather as many people as possible to have breakfast for free, tell them about our work, tell them what we're doing in the community and for the community. It's our chance to sort of spread the word about who we are and what we're doing. I've put a number of little cards here on the table telling people who are interested. We've lots of room for people to come to the breakfast. There is no charge for the breakfast. However, we don't like to sneak up on people, so be aware that if you come to the breakfast, you will at some point in the breakfast be asked for a donation, or to fill out a pledge card, or to make a donation. But there's no cost to come. And we'd love to have 700 or 800 people in the room hearing about Citizens Project. So if you would like to come, or if you know someone who'd like to come, or if you'd like to fill a table or whatever, take one of these. We'll put the word out. Email me. I can send you this electronically to send out to people. Whatever works for you. Okay. This is my card. These are the cards regarding the breakfast. I've also given you some flyers about Citizens Project with a picture of our executive director, Christy Milligan, who regrets that she couldn't be here this evening. And then just that little article about focus on the family, withdrawing that religious freedom amendment, which we were proud of our part in all of that. So that basically sums up what I came to tell you, other than to tell you thank you very much for the opportunity, and that we welcome your questions and your ideas and your thoughts. We'd love to have you write to us. We'd love to have you participate in some of the things that we do. We'd love to have you go down to the library and visit the Citizens Project archives. Look at the Finder's book. Just reading the index is amazing. You'll go, oh my God, I forgot about all that. Wow, I remember that, did that. Okay, so check that out. On August the 3rd, we're going to have a reunion party and a celebration of 20 years party at the library so that we can introduce people to the archives and have a display of some of the archived work. So we're doing a lot to celebrate, and we have a lot of work to do for the elections coming up in the fall. So thank you for letting me come. I don't think I answered all your questions, but I'm going to take these notes back to Christy and put her to work. Okay? If people have a couple more questions.
So Citizens Project started then as a result of Amendment 2 then?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Actually, that is not totally true. It was starting to foment around the issue of a school that refused to teach Greek mythology in school because they felt it was not, Christian enough. And so there were a group of people that were already agitated about that, but then when Amendment 2 came up, that was another galvanizing force that kind of propelled them on.
Whatever happened to your dinners?
We've never had dinners.
That explains it.
Well, they were before my time. Now we have two main events a year. We have the Divine Award, which is not a dinner. It's a cocktail party.
Earlier in your history,
Well, I don't.
You
know.
had interfaith dinners where people were encouraged to talk to one
Oh,
another.
you know what happened to those? I know what happened to those.
Yeah.
Those continue on, but they're managed through the diversity forum. I thought you meant like a gala fundraising.
No, no,
dinner.
no, no.
Oh, no. I got confused. Those dinners are still going on. You can still sign up for one. They're ongoing, and they are run through Colorado Springs Diversity Forum, of which we are a member. But we don't administrate those.
Do they work, or are the fundamentalists still using them to recruit?
You know, the fundamentalists try to recruit. That's their job. You know, that's what they believe they were put here to do, so that's what they try to do. But from what I understand, talking to people who've been involved in the groups, they're very thought-provoking. And that the fundamentalists are not always just trying to recruit, that there is some dialogue there.
Good.
Well, there's also the Jewish Christian Dialogue, which is an annual dinner speakers event.
But we wouldn't be invited to that.
Oh, anyway, can you?
Not Christian, not Jewish. Well, we thank you for coming.
Thank you for
This
having
is for
me.
you. This is a Michael Garman Pathfinder.
Oh my gosh.
You feel you're helping the Pathfinder.
Oh my
Pathfinder,
gosh.
right, honey?
Yes, ma'am.
Trailblazer.
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder. Oh, isn't that fantastic? Really cool. I can fight with Christy about this tomorrow. Who gets to have it on the desk?